All right, that's my talk. Thank you. Oh, no, come here. Nope. Wow, your touchpad is like super touchy. God dang. Do-do-do-do. No. Oh. Come on. All right, finally. Maybe. All right. Thanks, everyone, for sticking with all my technical difficulties. This was originally going to be a full talk, and they were looking for volunteers to do stable. So I dropped it down to a 25-minute talk. So I'm trying to cram as much as I can from a 30-minute talk into a stable talk. So I need to speed up. Don't. You know, next time I talk, if I ever get a talk again after this, I'm just going to have like a chart and just flip. All right, let's go. About me, you can read it. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, I love what I do. I've been doing it for about 20 years. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I don't have an original thought in my head, so I just retweet everybody else's stuff, but there it is. Agenda real quick. We're going to go over why I even thought about doing this. Because at first I was like, hey, Raspberry Pi, there's so much cool stuff you can do. I wonder if you can do some lightweight threat hunting. And a lot of people that I kind of mentioned it and bounced it off of were like, no, that's really stupid. It doesn't have the horsepower. So that's actually not true. So we're going to look at why this can work, what I did to make it work on a Pi. We're going to talk about different tools and integrations you can actually utilize. And then we're just going to, kind of wrap everything up. So this is actually a very, very easy and cheap thing to do. You can put this almost anywhere in an environment. I don't really recommend this for enterprises, large enterprises, and we'll get into that a little bit. But if you have a small, medium-sized business, or you want to use it for your own lab and just play around with it, it's the perfect way to actually get into, some lightweight threat hunting. And there's a lot of different things you can do with it. The best thing about this whole scenario is you can make multiple Pis and put them in multiple areas of your environment and have everything talk back to a centralized server. So there's been a couple of ports that have been done for Raspberry Pi, and they include the entire Elk stack on them. Well, if you've ever ran anything with Elk and want to actually utilize it for searching and all this, graphing and everything else, it does not really run well on a Pi at all. So again, this is intended to be used in conjunction with your own skill set. This is, it's all automated, but you still have to utilize your own talents for it. But if you haven't gotten into threat hunting, if it's something you're interested in, it's a good way to get into that process and start doing it. I gave a talk a little while ago about threat hunting in general. Any red teamers in here? Awesome. Any purple team? Awesome. So, really quick, where I was going with this is threat hunting isn't new. It's just a new buzzword. We've all been doing threat hunting for years. It just didn't have its own little word. So this is why I wanted to jump into this. Those coming into security saying, hey, I want to do threat hunting. I hear all about it. It's a good way to jump into it. So everything has a pro and a con, right? The pros of this, it's inexpensive. If you wanted to do this in a home environment, you can do it really cheap. You can deploy it very quickly. It is plug and play. Everything's automated into it. You have automation. You plug it in, it runs. It has threat feeds that get fed into it. And it uploads all the data to an Elk server. So, yeah, it doesn't have a lot of processing power because it's a Pi, but the main, the core of what it's doing is being offloaded. The cons, it's a Raspberry Pi. It doesn't have a lot of horsepower behind it. It could be used in a large enterprise, but don't expect a lot out of it. And if you do, be ready to go and unplug it and then plug it back in because it'll freeze up if you have too much traffic going through it. It's a Raspberry Pi. And the biggest problem that I ran into, it's ARM architecture. There's a lot you can do on a Pi. There's a lot of things that have been ported over. Not a lot of stuff, though, when it comes to security features. Like, has anyone ever installed FileBeat? It's for Elk. All right. Getting FileBeat to run on a Raspberry Pi almost made me want to blow my head off. You know, it's open source. I try to download and I follow the instructions step by step, and it doesn't work. Imagine that. So that was hard. And as things change, it will break things. As there's updates to dependencies or, you know, one of the tools themselves, it could break. So until, you know, that gets a little bit more stable, we're going to have to deal with that. All right, the hardware. For what I used, I got a Raspberry Pi 3 Model B. It's got a 32 gig SD card. It's got this pretty little case, and I have this little, you know, handheld keyboard, and all of that cost me $84. And 24 of it, I think, was the keyboard. So if you want to use, you know, a regular keyboard, USB keyboard and mouse, you can do that. I just like the portable keyboard because everything fits with my laptop in this case, and I have my keyboard, and I can just run around with it. So I am calling my little project Creepy Pi, and Creepy comes from Kyle Tomsek, aka Creepy. Hey, Creepy. So that's where this actually came, where I named this from. Now, I am not, I've told you before, I don't have an original thought in my head. I'm not the first person to think of this, nor am I the first person to put tools together. So what I did was I looked at the stuff that was out there, and I said, this one's really cool, I like this. This one's really cool, I like this. You know, I wonder if I can just kind of mash stuff together. Well, it's a good thing I did because, and it's no offense to, you know, the devs of Sweet Security Briar or Raspberry Pi NSM, but just like everything else, you know, if you have a dependency that changes and you don't go and, you know, update your own stuff, it'll break. So I actually had to use a combination of two just to get Bro working. But after I did that, I also decided I wanted Suricata to be running with it. And I know people are like, well, wait, that's two different IDS, and you have it running on a little Raspberry Pi. There's a reason I did that, though. I'll get into that. So the most important thing is when you are trying to get something on a Pi, getting it to work in a test environment. I can't tell you how many times I had to flash that SD card because I'm installing something, and then everything just broke. So it's not an easy task. So my hat's off to the developers who actually did this and got the tools running so they can run on a Pi. But just be aware, you might have to do your own little tweaking to it. So I chose a hybrid approach of using all three of these different tools. They all bring their own unique flavor to what we want to do for a Raspberry Pi threat hunting device. The basic configuration, though, is it's all based off of Raspbian. To make sure you're getting the most horsepower out of your Pi, you want to make sure you run it in command line mode. There's absolutely no reason to use the GUI at all. Set video memory to 0. That is something I learned the hard way because I was trying to install a couple of features and it would just lock up. I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And then it dawned on me. I'm like, wait, I still have my graphical memory set. There's no reason for that. Configure tools per instruction. After you've actually got it installed, whatever you do, follow it directly. Don't try to change anything initially until you get your setup right. Make sure you go through your configs because just like anything open source, you have to do your configs or it won't work. And be prepared to work. Just like a lot of different things that we have to do, you might follow the directions, you might do your configs and stuff is still broken, so you have to go change another config or create a file that was supposed to be created, etc., etc., etc. FileBeats. FileBeats is a pain, I already told you that, but I did get it to work. And it sends all your logs over to an Elk sensor or an Elk server. The deployment, what I did on mine, and there's obviously multiple ways, but in my environment, I set ETH0 to promiscuous, and you can either use a USB Ethernet dongle. I actually chose to use the Wi-Fi chip, and I have just a little wireless router that I have locked down, and it only communicates with the Creepy Pi and my Elk instance, which is running on my laptop. So I chose that route because I liked it a little bit out of band, so to speak. I mean, you can have it connect on the same network, but for security, I wanted it out of band, just in case there is actually something on there. I don't want that traffic messed with. And for the Elk server, I use Security Onion. Security Onion fans, if you haven't checked it out, you really need to. It's basically the Kali of Blue Team. So definitely use that. So let's talk about the actual hunting. Oh. All right, I'm not going to be able to touch the podium apparently. If you can, you want to monitor and baseline just like anything else. If you're not doing this in an active hunt investigation and just using it to start messing around, baseline everything. You're going to start seeing traffic and you might think, uh-oh, somebody's on my network. These two systems should not be communicating at all. But they are for some reason, so figure that out. It'll actually help tune your network a little bit too. It'll also can help you a lot of ways by understanding, hey, we're supposed to not have this server accessible from this VLAN, but for some reason we're getting traffic from it. So it can do a lot of helpful things with everything. But again, baseline everything if you have the opportunity. If you're using this in an actual hunt, make sure you understand that you have everything configured right first, obviously. But if you do, then you can just pop it in, let it run, and it'll start feeding everything to your sensor. And the way it does this is, on mine, I use a combination of Circata and Bro. Bro, because it's just awesome, also has an OTX, Alien Vault OTX feed into it. OTX fans? Ish. All right. If you haven't gone to see OTX, Threat Intelligence feed, otx.alienvault.com, I think. It's a great feed, great threat intelligence into it. I also use Suricata because I want to be able to do a little bit additional analysis that you can do with Security Onion because it's snort based. So there's additional things you can use in there. So what you get, what you get when you actually deploy everything is this pretty graph. Now, I'm not sure how well you can read on the screen. I'm afraid to move. Is this a mouse laser thingy? Is this a pew-pew? Yeah, sweet. So over there, great. So right here, this is already configured for threat hunting inside of Security Onion. So as soon as you spin up Security Onion, this is all done for you already. So you don't have to go through and mess with any of the dashboards or create your own stuff. Security Onion's instance of Kibana and Elk already have this done for you. All you have to do is use FileBeats, ship it over, and it'll start populating. Some of the different things that you can do with the traffic that you're gathering from your Raspberry Pi is look at top connections, all the fun stuff that Bro's going to see, different request types, lateral movement to a degree, all sorts of great, really great data. Again, keep in mind it's a Raspberry Pi, so you might get too much data going through and it's going to lock itself up. So play with it in your own environment, test it out, try to break it. Just like everything else, try to push as much as you can through it so you know its limits. I'm actually going to be putting this into a specific environment we have at work, and I'm going to try to blow it up. And we're going to attack the heck out of it, and I'm going to really put it through its paces. So you get really good data, but it doesn't just stop there. You can create your own custom IOCs in both Bro and Suricata. So it's not really that hard to do. Both of those languages, you can create anything you want. So if I want to say, I have a specific indicator of compromise, if I see traffic leaving 1.2.3.4, I want to know about it because it's a honeypot or it's a server that's only used once a month for accounting or something like that. So you can create that as an indicator of compromise saying, hey, traffic is leaving 1.2.3.4, that's bad. So you can get alerts through that. Anyone here use MISP? One? So, oh, two, good. So MISP is a threat intelligence platform. It's open source, and you can get a bunch of feeds from that, and it'll give you indicators of compromise, and it's really cool. Well, you can export some of those indicators of compromise from MISP into a snort feed, or into a snort signature. And since we're running Suricata, which is snort-based, now we can have those IOCs going in there to give you even more availability and more detection capabilities. And the biggest thing, custom IOCs are created by you. It's what matters in your environment, what specific needs that you have. So, since I did have to cram this talk from 60 minutes to 25 minutes, I couldn't get my demos to work into it. So what I'm going to do is, as soon as our lab is built and we start blowing it up, I'm going to do a video of that, and I'm going to throw it on YouTube so you can actually see everything in progress. You can watch things blow up. You can see everything getting caught. So I'm going to upload that, and I'll tweet it out when I do, saying, hey, if you want to see that video, it's up there on YouTube. It'll be the first original tweet I've probably had in 10 years. But to summarize, it's easy-ish. You know, it's not too hard to do. Utilizing tools that are already out there, that's the biggest thing. There's so many tools available to us all, and all you have to do is go, you know what, I want to mash this crap together and see what happens. I think this will work. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. The POC of CreepyPie I'm going to upload to GitHub, so I'm actually going to take what I've done and throw it up on GitHub so you don't have to go through the trials and tribulations that I did. Keep in mind, though, that I'm going to upload it, and I'm not curating it, though, so fair, full disclosure, once it's up there, I'm not going to mess with it. So, but if you want to contribute to it and say, hey, I'd like to, I've been messing with this, and I, made this feature, contribute, by all means. This is the very beginning of what I've done with it. I plan on seeing how far I can push that little Raspberry Pi with doing some automation stuff that especially after seeing Mr. Mick Douglas's talk yesterday, with a lot of the stuff he's doing with PowerShell. So I'm gonna really cram a lot of stuff into CreepyPie just to see what I can do before it explodes. And again, if you have any interest in contributing, by all means, hit me up. Let's make this thing awesome. So there I am. If you want to follow me, that's my GitHub. I'm not a developer by any means. I have one thing on GitHub, and it's just this little Python script that says, yeah, a credit card's a credit card, or a number's a credit card number or not. So at this time, I got, I think, 4 minutes now. So questions? Yes, sir, you were first.
Do you have the approximate throughput that causes the Raspberry Pi to crash?
I haven't had mine crash. The question was, do you have the approximate throughput that causes the Raspberry Pi to crash? So in my home lab, which consists of like a laptop, the Raspberry Pi, and an old-ass server, it worked just fine, me trying to kill it. But in an enterprise environment, which we're getting ready to build for this, don't know yet, but I'll be tweeting things out about CreepyPie. So if you want to follow me, I'm going to actually have original thought on Twitter now. That's awesome. So yeah, I'll be posting up stats and things like that. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? All right, hey, thanks everyone for coming to my talk on a Sunday at 2 o'clock, last day of DerbyCon, so I appreciate it. Thanks.